OTAs are here. A lot of information came out that we definitely got to sift through. A lot of offseason stuff that really we still got to figure out. What are some position battles that are going to be important? What are we looking forward to? This quarterback position obviously is at the top of everybody's mind, and we actually got some information today that we can overanalyze and dissect every which way for the next 3 months. I can't wait for it. Anyways, we'll get going right after this. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's your boy Jesse, and I got my guy, So Real, Sue Neal in the building, wearing a Deebo Samuel jersey. You want to let us in on why you're wearing a Deebo Samuel jersey of all players?
Deebo is out there just being Deebo, right? Deebo don't do things unless they Mando. He Deebo. Deebo only does what's Mando. So if it's voluntary, he ain't going to be there. But I'm going to be there because, look, Deebo might not have shown up to OTAs today, but Deebo definitely being represented on this show because as Deebo, we go.
Yeah, I appreciate that because this show is completely voluntary. You didn't have to show up. And I love that you did it wearing a Deebo Samuel jersey. Appreciate it. What's up to everybody in the chat? I see Kieran, Hadiz, Brother Bob. Let's see who else in here. USMC. I see y'all. I appreciate it. Young Montana, Emiliano. You guys got it cracking early. Appreciate it. Well, there's a lot to talk about. And let's not waste any time. Today was the first media session in OTAs. And there was a lot that came out of it. Not only from a standpoint of what happened on the field, but the 49ers, I think, did a fantastic job here. I don't know about you, Sunil, but if somebody had asked me prior to Shanahan and the quarterbacks getting up there to meet with the reporters, if you had asked me, how many quarterbacks are you going to see meet with the media today? I would have said 0.
Ooh.
They didn't do 0. They did all 3 in the ultimate troll job. Way to keep the conversation going. They know exactly what they're doing, and I absolutely love that they did it. That being said, we heard from all 3 quarterbacks. We've heard reports that have come out. We've seen videos of Trey Lance and Sam Darnold throwing. What are some of the takeaways that you have from today, either media session or on the field session, from what you were able to gather?
First, I want to say we got to see all 4 quarterbacks because Kyle Shanahan also spoke, and he is perennially QB1, right? So it was great, man. 49ers basically sat up there and said, we want all the smoke. We've been seeing you, Twitter. We've been seeing you, Faithful. We've been watching all the television shows. We've been seeing you talking. Now, not only do we have 4 quarterbacks, we like all 4 of them, and all 4 of them are speaking, and ain't nobody scared of the smoke. So that's true. B. Allen didn't, but only 3 of these guys we know are going to be on the squad come week 1. So, yeah, my biggest takeaways, first off, is, you and me had some similar thinking because we tweeted it about 2 minutes apart. I was first, you were second, but since you got more Twitter followers, people think it's you that tweeted it. But
you're my ghostwriter.
Yeah, that's it. But just the fact that one beat writer kept trying to ask everybody the same question, and it was just about how McCaffrey has a torn face. Like, it's just like he really thought that he had this question, and this question was going to be earth-shattering. All the news media is going to pick this question up and run with it. So he's like, not only am I going to ask it to Shanahan, I'm going to ask it to Darnold. I'm going to ask it to Birdie. I'm going to ask it to Lance, and, see how all of them feel about it. And just for you that missed it, it shows that Christian McCaffrey is a leader and nobody was surprised. But Yeah, my biggest takeaways is one, Jesse. This is a QB room that is really, really hard not to root for. Like every single one of these quarterbacks has a story. Every single quarterback is not shying away from the competition, and it seems genuinely that either they're all really good actors or they genuinely like being around each other and they all want the best for each other. Even though all of them know that only one person is going to end up with the starting job. So for me, that was the biggest takeaway. It seems like there's a definitive pecking order there. Obviously, Purdy, if he's healthy, is QB1. Trey Lance is QB2. And then Darnold is QB3. And the reason why I say Darnold's QB3, he mentioned that he still needs to learn this system. So it's going to be really, really hard to be QB1 over two quarterbacks that know the system and are already, up to speed that way. It was nice to see Purdy there. Obviously, he's day by day. A lot of mentions of God, which was great for, both Shanahan and Purdy spoke about God in two very different ways, but nonetheless, God was shot out a few times. Overall, though, it's nice to see. It seems like Purdy's on track to, whatever timeline that is. It was great to see Trey Lance and Darnold out there. But to me, the most impressive out of all three was Trey Lance. And I know I'm a Trey Lance homer. I really, want the best for him. But to be in the situation that he's in, the presence and the poise that he had, he didn't shy away from any of the questions. I thought it was great. Somebody asked him two things that stood out to me. They asked him, do you feel like it would be? There's been a lot of talk about you being traded. So does it seem like that might have actually been better for you based off of everything that's going on? Without hesitation, before the question was even finished, he was saying no. He loves this team. He loves this coaching staff. He loves the players. And then when he talked about, what your actual situation is, Brock Purdy, Shanahan, and Lynch have said he's going to be QB1. He's like, look, I already knew this. I told you guys this at the end of the year. All I wanted was an opportunity to compete, and that's what I'm getting, an opportunity to compete. So, yeah, those were the biggest takeaways, I think, outside of obviously Purdy being healthy and being on track and going to be starting to throw next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there any of the on-field stuff that you took away at all? Like just from the videos you saw?
Oh, it's all about throwing motion in OTAs, baby. I was trying to find, which quarterback that it represents as far as his throwing motion, but look, I'm not the best at X's and O's and, all that kind of stuff. You could definitely tell that there is a difference between what Trey looked like when he was here as a rookie and what Trey looks like now. I think Steph posted a great video on her Twitter. She's been doing great work this offseason. So definitely check her Twitter out. They did a side-by-side comparison, and I think that was great. But, overall, it's tough to tell really what's there with, no pads and, no rust there to see exactly what the quarterbacks are made of. But, all good signs. As good as you could look right now, I guess it looked that good.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll go on-field stuff, and then I'll go just quickly what was said in the press conferences, just my one or two takeaways for all of them. So on the field stuff, I mean, one thing that I think we've said multiple times on this show and been very clear about, that we would be shocked if Trey Lance didn't take the first snap. Regardless of what the competition is, that if he didn't take the first snap, that would be surprising. He took the first snap, and he took the first team snaps for whatever it's worth all day today and all day yesterday. Shanahan kind of laughed it off like, oh, it'll even out, but the reality is right now that's where they're at. I also did found it kind of amusing that Sam Darnold is already fumbling in OTAs. Come on, man. Like it was apropos only because there's been this argument back and forth about, the turnovers and do they matter? And is it his fault or is it because he hasn't had enough weapons around him? How much does college play into it? And then the first chance he gets in 11 on 11s, my man drops the snap and fumbles the ball. It just, you couldn't have written a better script. I say that half jokingly, but only half jokingly.
Look,
I thought it was just really funny. Really, really funny.
To give some bail to Sam Darnold, Brendel's perspiration situation was not reported. So we have no idea what the perspiration situation was. So we know that sometimes in OTAs, there's a perspiration situation that could definitely play a role in, ball security. So since that wasn't reported, we got to give Darnold some bail.
Totally fair. No, that's totally fair. I'm glad you pointed out the lack of coverage on the perspiration situation. But when we got to the actual press conference, the two things that I took away from Shanahan is the plan was to have Brock back week 1, but only God knows. And but he continued to show support for all 3 quarterbacks. And I think he did a good job of that. I think he did a good job of navigating that situation. And he also, and I didn't have this as a takeaway, but I just did a show with Rohan, and I do remember Shanahan saying this. He did point out that in order for Brock to be back and ready to go week 1, in his eyes, he needs to have a couple weeks of competition under his belt. He's not gonna just roll in, throwing off the sideline, get the game plan the Sunday before and go out there and play. That's not the expectation they have. And I love that. I think it's realistic, and he may meet that timeline, and that would be great for him. But I also like that they're going to play it safe for his sake, for the team's sake, and not push it if it's not there. If he's fully healthy, cool, no issue with it. But at least give a couple weeks of competition, because he's going to need that. And it's one thing that we've talked about all offseason is we have to remember, even if he's the best quarterback on the roster right now, it doesn't mean he doesn't have things that he needs to improve on.
Right.
And he's going into his first full offseason where he has an opportunity to actually improve. And much like Trey, he's going through an injury, and this offseason is being spent on rehab. So if he gets no time to compete and then gets thrown out there week 1, it's not going to look good. It's just not. So I like that they have a game plan that meets what my expectations ultimately would be of the game plan. And they fully expect that he's going to meet that, but they are going to take it slow in that regard. So I like that. Brock then reiterated that the plan is to be week 1 and also to throw next week. But I love the way that Brock Purdy carries himself. And I like that he also pumped the brakes. It's like a under promise and over deliver situation. He's smart enough to know that if he says, hey, I'm for sure going to do this, even if it's off by a day, it's going to be blown way out of proportion.
Right.
And he knows that. And so he gets up in front of the media and he answers with confidence. Yes, the timeline seems to match up, but he's not going to put any expectations on it because he doesn't want narratives to be created if something is off. So I love that about him. Very, very intelligent. Love the way that he carries himself per usual. We get to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold made it very clear that he's content to just learn right now. It's the same thing he said when he was first signed with the 49ers. I wouldn't expect him to say much different. It's still very early in the process. I'm sure if he's asked these same things in training camp, it'll be more of a competitive nature. But for right now, he should be content to learn. There's a lot to catch up on, and he only has a short amount of time to do it. So I like that mentality. But I got to be honest with you, and this is just a personal preference thing. When I listen to Brock Purdy talk and Trey Lance talk, and then I listen to Sam Darnold talk, that dude exudes zero confidence. Zero. And again, this doesn't mean you can't be a good quarterback, you can't be a good leader. But to me, when you have somebody that you want to be the face of your franchise, he is dead last on that list by a wide margin. Like, I'm sorry, I can't listen to that guy talk and say another or It is really hard to listen to. And if you are going to go out there and be a leader of a team, I want you to exude confidence. Maybe he does that in the huddle. Maybe he does that with his teammates, and that's what's most important. But not being able to articulate in front of the media, It's just a bugaboo of mine. So that's one thing I picked up on. And then going to Trey, he talked about arm fatigue, and he's ready to put that to rest. He kind of laughed that off. And I loved his demeanor. He was very jovial. You could tell he kept talking about how much he was just living in the moment and loving life. That showed. And it ended the press conference that way. I think Grant had asked him a question about, does he seek psychological help in a roundabout way? And he made a joke out of it. He's like, well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely help that I've seeked out, but it's not like a situation where the team came to me and said, you're sad, go get help. And he kind of laughed it off. And then that's how the press conference ended. I enjoyed that. You could tell that he is much more comfortable in who he is, probably knowing that this is his last real chance to compete and start and be a 49er long term. And he's just very loose, very relaxed, definitely open to the competition. Nothing has changed in his mind, but he's not just saying it, he's showing it. So I loved ultimately the QB room as a whole. I love. Clearly, to me, there's a pecking order. I would much rather see Brock and Trey play. I have a lot more confidence in them. Maybe Sam is nervous and trying to find his way, and he's not always like that. I haven't watched a ton of interviews of his, but for a guy that plays skittish to also get up in front of the media and talk a little skittish, it's just a bugaboo of mine. And maybe I'm overlooking or over reading things, but that's just my personal preference.
Wouldn't be the first time, Jesse. Wouldn't be the first time.
No, it definitely wouldn't be. It definitely wouldn't be. So, I mean, whatever. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Okay, I did want to talk about this, and not necessarily where it pertains to the San Francisco 49ers, although it could lead into that conversation. But just, I was having a conversation on Twitter, and it did start with the 49ers quarterbacks. And somebody had said to me that they believe that the 49ers have two franchise quarterbacks right now in Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. And my response back was, I think it's more likely that they have zero rather than two. Just based off the history of the NFL, to have two of those guys at the same time is very, very slim to none. It's more likely that you don't have a franchise quarterback. And then there was some back and forth on what a franchise quarterback meant. And so I wanted to ask you, if I say franchise quarterback, in the chat as well, I would love to get your participation in this. When I say franchise quarterback, I don't need a player in return, but what does that mean to you? How do you define franchise quarterback? Because I think it's definitely opinionated. There is no factual, hey, this is the definition. But I'm curious, what is your definition of a franchise quarterback?
First off, if any organization is going to have two franchise quarterbacks at the same time, it's going to be this organization, because we've had two of the greatest at the same time, Joe Montana, Steve Young. They were both on the squad. So once again, proving Jesse wrong that you can have two rather than zero. But to answer your question, what a franchise quarterback is, I think it's interesting because within franchise quarterbacks, I think there's levels as well, right? Because I would consider Patrick Mahomes a franchise quarterback as well as Kirk Cousins. But obviously there's a totally different level to what you're going to be able to get with Patrick Mahomes as your franchise quarterback and what you're going to be able to get with Kirk Cousins as your franchise quarterback. For me, what a franchise quarterback is going to be somebody that always gives you a chance to win, meaning that they're going to be a player that, I think you use it as a net zero or net positive, right? So if you're at least a net zero, to me, you could be a franchise quarterback, because being a net zero in the NFL is extremely tough because mistakes are so magnified, So if you are a net zero to your team at the quarterback position, to me, you're eligible to be a franchise quarterback. Now, with that being said, Obviously, if you're a plus, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, like a Joe Burrow, that's a completely different level of franchise quarterback. But to me, I would say somebody that you're going to give money to, go long term with, because it's so rare to find a plus quarterback. It's so hard to find those type of talents in the league. Somebody that's just a net zero, meaning they're not the reason why you lose a game, and they could, but they could be a reason why you win the game or keep you sustainable if you put the right pieces around them to win a game.
And I think that's fair. That was basically the stance that this other person had. My stance is a little bit different. Yeah, and I've said all those things. Not when I'm not pertaining to a franchise quarterback, but just quarterback play in general. I think quarterback play in the NFL is just not very good, really. When you look top to bottom, there's not a lot of true starting level quarterbacks. I think guys like Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, those are true starting level quarterbacks in this league. Guys that certainly you can go out there and have them be your guy for some time and maybe even win a lot of games. But to me, a franchise quarterback is somebody that I am just not willing to replace under any circumstance. And I think when you sign a guy like a Kirk Cousins or a Carr or a Kyler or a Dak, guys that are next man up guys, but they don't meet that upper echelon criteria, I think it actually hurts your team long term more than it helps. I think doing that puts you in no man's land. It's always going to put you in the playoffs or close to it, but you're never actually really going to win anything. And so I think for me, a franchise guy is somebody that has to be a net positive guy, and somebody that when you pay them, if you strip away a piece or two, that player is going to be able to keep the team at a high level. And so for me, that's what a franchise quarterback means. I don't think, like I said, it's completely based off of an opinion. It is whatever you think. There is no definition. I was just curious because
Could we expand on that? Could we expand on that though? Because I want to find out, because if that is the case, there's probably not that many franchise quarterbacks in the league. Then you would agree?
I agree. Yes. 100%.
Okay, so
yes.
I'm gonna list off all the starting quarterbacks, and I want you to tell me franchise quarterback or not. All right?
Well, I think we're gonna end this list pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, just start at the top. We're gonna get a few.
Let's do it. I'm gonna go team by team. Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Josh Allen.
Yep.
Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Deshaun Watson.
He's borderline. He was absolutely, but that was prior to everything that he did. And so
if he goes back, because this last year, obviously he been out of football a year and a half. If he comes back, because at the tail end of last year, he was starting to play well again. So.
If he can return to the level that he was with the Texans the last time we saw him, then yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Russ Wilson.
Not anymore.
Oof. CJ Stroud.
Too early to tell.
Anthony Richardson played the same thing.
Too early.
Trevor Lawrence.
He's trending that way. I still think it's too early to tell.
Okay. Mahomes, obviously.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously. Not just kidding. Jimmy G. Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Tua.
No.
If there was no injuries?
No.
Mac?
No. To be fair, I'll also say too early to tell. If it's too early to tell on Lawrence, they're both in their second year. So I'll reserve my right. I want to see a third year. Too early to tell, but it's not trending that way.
Aaron Rodgers.
He used to be. I wouldn't put him there. I mean, you're only going to get another year or two out of him, but is his skill set good enough to be? Yes.
Okay. Kenny Pickett.
Too early to tell.
Ryan Tannehill?
Absolutely not.
All right, so those are all the AFC. So AFC has quite a bit. I mean, it seemed like half the league has all of the franchise quarterbacks are on the AFC right now. Okay, so Atlanta, Desmond Ridder, too early to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray, you said no, right?
No.
Interesting. Bryce Young, we don't know.
Too early.
Justin Fields, too early.
Too early.
Dak.
No.
Woo. Jared Goff.
No.
Jordan Love, too early. Matthew Stafford.
No.
You said Kirk Cousins, no. You said Derek Carr, no. Daniel Jones.
No.
Jalen Hurts.
Too early. He's like Trevor Lawrence. He's trending there. He's definitely trending there, but right now it's still too early.
All right. Obviously, 49ers, Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. We don't know. Geno Smith.
No.
Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield.
No.
Sam Howell, too early to tell. So let me look. You said of this. So Matthew Stafford used to be, but you said not anymore. Dak, you said no to. So there's not one other than Jalen Hurts. You said possibly could be.
He's trending there. Yeah.
As of now, there's 0 franchise quarterbacks in the NFC, and in the AFC, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're saying 5, and there's like 3 or 4 on the bubble based off of the way they trend.
Yeah. Like Watson, if he regains his form, if Trevor Lawrence keeps trending that direction, Hurts, if he keeps trending that direction,
Watson could get back there.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there are some guys on the cusp, but
at the most, we're saying 8, and possibly with the new group, with Stroud, Richardson, maybe another 3. But let's say
the league doesn't have more than 7 to 10 is a lot in the league at any given point. Usually it sits around 7 realistically. So
gotcha. That's interesting. So yeah, I think that if that were how the NFL saw franchise quarterbacks, there would be much more turnover.
Yeah.
In the quarterback position, or it's just really tough to find that top 7 type talent. So you kind of have to deal with just somebody that's a net 0.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to get back to the super chat in a second. And Randall, yes, I have said that, but I also want to say it's too early to tell. Like, for sure. If you ask my opinion of which direction it's going to go, I'm going to give you my opinion, but ultimately it's too early to tell. And I always use Zach Wilson as the barometer, because Zach Wilson coming into the draft is a guy that I didn't like at all. And everything I didn't like about Zach Wilson coming into the draft, he's shown for 2 years in the NFL. So if there was anybody that I was going to write off and say 0 chance, it would be a guy that I didn't like coming into the process, and a guy for 2 years that has shown literally exactly who I thought he was. And even him, I'm going to say, I want to see a 3rd year. I really am big on 3 years for quarterbacks, and not just 3 years in the league, but where you're playing a good chunk of those 3 years before I make a decision, because there are too many quarterbacks, specifically, too many guys that have either started off hot, sold you that they were something, and then completely fallen off, or vice versa, where they looked awful and then figured it out around year 3 and turned out to be very good. So I think it's too early to tell. All of these guys, I have an opinion. Mac Jones, I don't think he's going to be, but still too early to tell. Do I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be? Absolutely. I thought he was coming into the process. He's showing that, but it's still too early to tell. So I just want to be clear about my stance. Yes, my opinion is absolutely, I don't think he's going to be that guy, but it's too early to say that he cannot, for sure, unequivocally, will not, impossible be that guy. It's too early for that. And it's the way it is for a lot of these guys, that if they've spent less than 3 years in the league, that's pretty much going to be my answer. But we do have a question here for 50 minus. He says, question for both. If Brock Purdy had Trey's arm, would your thoughts on Brock be different? I'll let you answer that first.
And I'm assuming he's talking about the strength.
Yeah, I think just his arm talent overall.
Because right now, Brock Purdy is way more accurate than Trey. So as far as arm in that sense, I wouldn't want to change Brock Purdy's arm.
Let's assume that he means all the good parts of Trey Lance's arm and his arm talent.
Yeah, I mean, if Brock Purdy had Trey's arm and Trey's size, Brock Purdy would be the first pick of the draft, right? The kid's intangibles, his his humbleness, his aptitude, the way he processes the game, his athleticism, all that kind of stuff are off the charts. Obviously, he's not as big as Strong, which is why he dropped to the 7th round versus being picked in the 1st round. So, yeah, that's like saying, if Steph Curry was 4 inches taller, like, if he was built like LeBron, is he gonna?
Yeah.
Would you change the way he thought? Of course, absolutely. But once again, I'm not as sold that Brock Purdy isn't the guy, right? So like I'm a little bit higher on Brock Purdy than I think Jesse is, just because at the end of the day, I've seen a whole multitude of quarterbacks play on the 49ers, and I've never under Shanahan, and I've never seen the offense look as good as it did until Brock Purdy was throwing the ball. So, so in that aspect, I think absolutely Brock Purdy may not have the same type of success on other teams, but in this system, with this coach, with this team around him, obviously we've seen that they could be Super Bowl contenders in my eyes. So, but as far as what Trey brings, I think that if we gave Trey the same opportunities, I just want to see what he's capable of, because to me, Trey's size, strength, and athleticism should be able to do similar to what Brock Purdy, but all that other stuff he's better at naturally could take the team even, another level. At least on paper. Is it actuality?
Sure, on paper,
we
yes.
need to see, and I think both of us are realistic on that. But yeah, if Brock Purdy's mentality and soul went into Trey Lance's body, yeah, we would be having a different conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you'd be having like top 5 quarterback of all time vibes very early on. I actually think this is a good question. The timing of it is good after we've had the franchise quarterback talk, because it sounds like we're both comfortable with different levels of quarterback play. And that's totally fine. Like I said, it doesn't mean you're right or wrong or I'm right or wrong. It's just the reality of the situation. And so when we talk about quarterback play and what we expect from a franchise quarterback, we have different levels of expectation and thoughts on that. And so that's going to sway what we think of Brock Purdy potentially long term. But I do want to say this. My confidence level in Brock short term is there. It's definitely there. It's more long term. It's the franchise quarterback stuff. I know that he can win with this team in the regular season and even in the playoffs. But when it comes time to get paid and you have to start stripping those things away, will he meet the criteria, for me anyways, of a franchise quarterback? Sounds like if he just continues to do what he does now, he's met your criteria of franchise quarterback. If he didn't get any ounce better but continue to do what he does now, you believe that he would be a franchise quarterback, because he would fall, I would assume, somewhere in that 12-ish range for you, which would meet that criteria.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if he doesn't get an ounce better, he doesn't meet that criteria. And so that's where we kind of differ a little bit. But confidence level in him now certainly is there. But yes, if you took his biggest weakness and turned it into a strength, much like I could say pretty much for any quarterback in the NFL, I think my opinion of them would change. If I could take every quarterback in the league, their biggest weakness, and turn it into a strength, would I think differently of them? You're damn right I would. Yes, absolutely. No question about it. 49ers Daddy says, odds that Trey Lance starts week 1 in 8+ games. Oh, that's a whole different question there. You got 2 things. Okay. I'll go first on this one. Week 1 and 8+ games. So I've got to assume that Brock Purdy's not ready to go week 1. In order for me to give you a high mark here, I'm just explaining. I've then got to assume that Trey Lance can stay healthy, and that the 49ers win early, which they don't often do, and that Trey Lance is balling out. I've got to assume all 4 of those things to meet this criteria. I'll say 30%. Where are you at?
90%.
90%. Damn. Okay.
I think
love
the
it.
only way Trey Lance doesn't end up starting 8 games is if he gets injured.
The 8 games for me, I might be more confident in than the week one.
I
Because
think
I
it's
think the
100%
49ers.
chance if he's healthy, he starts week 1.
Okay. I like it.
So for me,
Because you don't think that Purdy is going to be ready week one,
yeah.
is your stance.
I
Okay,
mean, it's
that's
all.
fair.
I think if you're reading between, like, if you could start speaking Shanahan, which we've started to learn how to speak, you know what I mean? Like he's already
Get your
telling
Greta
us
Stone
that,
out. We got to learn to speak
yeah,
Shanahan. I love
if
this.
you
Okay.
speak Shanahan, which is read between the lines, he said, yeah, we believe he's going to be ready week 1, but he would need to be able to play ahead of time to be able to start week 1. So he's not starting week 1 is what Shanahan just told us, right? So if it's not him, it's definitely Trey. I think Trey is going to be great, and I think it's going to be extremely hard for Shanahan to take him out unless he gets injured.
Okay. I love it. I just think there's so many factors that aren't even in Trey's like grasp. If the question is how confident are you that the 49ers have a good season if Trey Lance starts week 1 and can he take them far? Where's he at week 18? Oh, I'm 110% confident in Trey Lance. But there are some things that I think are outside of his control. I know are outside of his control.
Which is
I
what?
just don't know. Which is if Brock Purdy's fully healthy 3 weeks prior to week 1, I think he's going to start. And
I
he
agree
might
with
be
that.
trending towards that.
I don't think he's anywhere close to trending towards that. That's the thing.
He may not, but I'm saying there's enough of a possibility in my mind, at least, to bring that number way down in confidence level, because that's where I think that's where we differ. I could see a scenario.
What is your confidence level if Trey is the week 1 starter that he gets benched?
The only reason it wouldn't that he gets benched. Oh, I don't think he gets benched at all.
So when Purdy gets set, let's say Purdy's healthy, ready to go, cleared by week 3.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Trey
I think
starting.
yeah,
Trey
I agree with
finishes the
that.
season as long as he's healthy.
Barring health, yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're on
injury,
the same page. I don't think that there's a chance Brock Purdy is ready to start week 1.
Okay. That's where we differ. And that's where my confidence level goes way down. Because I actually think that my stance this whole time has been that I believe that Brock Purdy will be cleared week 1, but he won't have enough of the competition in to go week 1. But I also do believe that if he does have enough competition in and he's able to go, that he would be the starter. And so I think that's completely out of Trey's control.
Yeah. I just think that there's a lot to be physically ready for NFL football that Brock Purdy's just not going to be able to do enough of, right? He's not going to be healthy enough, not just arm health is what I'm not talking about that, but I'm just saying game shape. Like if you're not taking those reps, if you're not going all out doing that, getting in game shape is not going to be, feasible.
Yeah. Yeah. And that may be the case. We'll see. Like I said, I agree with Michael here. I think that he'll be never mind. I thought you said ready week 1, so I don't fully agree. Like I said, I think he'll be fully cleared, but he won't have enough of the competition under his belt to start week 1. But I wouldn't be shocked if it goes the other way. And so for me, that's why I'm like, that number is way down. But if it's just, hey, confidence level in Trey, and if he starts week 1 that he keeps his job barring getting injured, I'm fully confident in that.
I mean, let's be real, Jesse. Even Hall of Fame elite quarterbacks don't start week 1 cold. They still take snaps in preseason games. They still take, all the reps in off season. Even like, I'm trying to think of an example of like a player that was injured that still wasn't able, like, because they weren't able to do any preseason and all that. I don't think I could think of a quarterback that just started cold without any reps with the first team and, preseason, all that kind of stuff. Like, and especially a quarterback that's never had a full offseason as a starter, right? Which Purdy hasn't. He didn't take any first team reps in the offseason when he was a rookie, right? So I don't think you could just throw him back and expect that he's going to be able to pick up where he left off, type of thing.
Yeah, in 187, I know that you're like joking here, but actually the answer is he was very in game. I mean, this guy competed for 16 weeks, 17 weeks before he started or came into the Miami game. I mean, you think about it, he was competing in training camp just to make the team. Played an awful lot in the preseason ramping up. Then he was the scout team guy, competing there every single week. Then he gets into some short action against Kansas City. Doesn't look great, but I mean, he came in, got to, play a little bit. And then by the time he took over, I mean, he had been competing for 3.5, 4 months, realistically. So that's a lot different than this offseason, where best case scenario, you're probably going to get maybe 4 weeks of competition max. That's in like best case scenario. Realistically, you're going to get 2, maybe 3 weeks. So it's a very different, very, very different thing. I think that you're underestimating the fact that competition and just being in that environment goes a long way. And we not only saw it with Brock Purdy, but we saw it the year prior with Trey Lance. Trey Lance, what he looked like week 5 against Arizona versus week 17 against the Texans. All those weeks of running the scout team did Trey Lance a lot of wonders too. A lot of wonders. And it's not also just Brock Purdy. The 49ers week 1 versus week 12 or week 16 are a completely different machine. They've shown that the last couple of seasons. So it's not just the quarterback, it's also the team being fully integrated into competition and game shape and all those things. So there's a lot of factors that, like I said, you're joking about it. But realistically, I don't think it's a joke. I think it's a real thing.
Right.
Okay.
I guess the one thing, Jesse, before we move off, one thing that is in favor of Brock Purdy being able to transition pretty quickly is that the team that he's surrounded by is pretty much exactly the same as what he left, right?
Sure.
The offensive line, the only change is Colton McKivitz on the right side, but 4 out of 5 of the offensive linemen are still there, especially his center. Running backs are the same. Outside weapons are the same. So it's not like there's going to be an unfamiliarity with the players, because I think if there was just brand new wide receivers and running backs and offensive line, then you're thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. But still, even with the same players, there's the timing, all that kind of stuff has to get back on the same page. I would hate for them to just go out there week 1 and be like, hey, let's just hope that we remember what it felt like, 6 months ago or whatever it's been.
Yeah, and also, I mean, maybe I'm breaking news to the chat. You guys let me know if it's breaking news, but Brock Purdy is eventually going to lose a game, and there will be a game that he doesn't look good. That's the reality of the situation. That is the NFL. Every player does this at some point. So for Brock Purdy right now, he has this shine of he's never lost and he looks so good and all these things. Well, if he doesn't get that time to compete in training camp the way that Shanahan wants, and they just throw him in there, and that game happens to come week 1, that's not good for him retaining his job long term. You know what I mean? So that's why it is important that he has at least a couple weeks to ramp up. Kyle Shanahan talked about that. He agrees, obviously. And that's what is the difference of having 16 weeks or 17 weeks or whatever of competition before playing last year, to where if he only gets 2 or 3 this year, that is a big difference. Even though he has played some football, it's still very, very different. So I think that it's just a storyline to watch. He may be ready to go week 1. He may play great, but it doesn't make this point in this moment not valid. Okay.
You're a hater for saying Brock Purdy's going to lose a game.
I know. I can't believe I said that. That's crazy talk. All right. NFL rule changes. There was 3 of them of note, and we'll just quickly go over this. But The 3 changes are you can basically have a third quarterback, an emergency quarterback on game day that doesn't count towards
Shanahan rule.
your roster. It's the Shanahan rule, yeah. Kickoffs, if you fair catch it outside the end zone, the ball automatically gets placed at the 25-yard line. And then the Thursday night, they can flex you into additional Thursday night games as long as it doesn't meet the rule of playing on the road, or meets the rule of not playing on the road for multiple Thursday night games, because that's a major disadvantage. Any thoughts or takeaways on these rules?
I love the first one because clearly we could have definitely used that, and possibly made the Super Bowl if that was the case. The second two I hate, and the reason why I hate. Let's start with the Thursday night game. I just think this is a major FU to the fans because, obviously I'm parroting what a lot of people have already said, but some of these games are like, with the way the prices are and things like that, it's like you're planning your day around that, right? If I'm going to a game, I'm planning that day. The whole day changes for me, like, and especially if it's like, I'm getting a game on Sunday. Obviously, that makes it available to be able to do that, tailgate, all that kind of stuff, and go to that game. And then if it gets flexed to a Thursday, I might not be able to go to that game anymore because I have work, and I might not be able to get the day off and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just like, I don't understand what the positives are from the ownership side to make that kind of change, because it's already getting really, really expensive to be a fan of your team and go support them, buy the jerseys, go to the arenas, pay for parking, pay for food, drinks, all that kind of stuff. And that's not even mentioning the ticket prices, which you can't find a decent ticket for less than $300, $400. I just really don't understand why they felt that. And it shows you that they care way more about the TV, the TV deals than they care about the actual fans in the stands, because that's the only reason why this was for. It was for whomever gets that Thursday night game. I forget who has it now, but is it still Prime that has Thursday? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely for Prime. The kickoff one is so soft to me, man. Like, I wish they would have changed the rule earlier, because then we wouldn't have needed to get rid of Robbie Gold, right? Like, now all of a sudden everything is a kickback, everything is a like a touchback.
That was 70% of the argument.
Yeah,
in the end zone. Now here we are, a couple weeks later. They still spent a third round pick on a kicker. I want to hear how dumb I am now. Okay, let's keep.
No, but I mean, I just think that, like, and I'm a big Pat McAfee fan, and I was listening to him talk about this because obviously he's a special teams guy, and he used to do kickoffs for his team. And the way he talks about it is just it's miserable. I don't think there's any special teams coach that likes this rule. No kicker that likes this rule, because it's starting to show that special teams is becoming less and less important. And now you look at that kickoff position, before there used to be specialists, right? We grew up where we got to see Desmond Howard. We got to see who's the guy from the Bears? I can't, like, we can't even remember, because there's no elite kick returners anymore.
Remember
because they
Dante Hall, though. Remember
Dante Hall? I can't believe I'm forgetting the guy from the Bears.
Oh my, he won a freaking Heisman, didn't he?
Yeah.
Howard. Is it Howard? Something.
Desmond Howard? No.
Somebody.
But has Devin Hester.
Devin Hester.
Yeah. Devin Hester. Like, that used to be such a exciting part of the game, and they already ruined it with starting from giving the kickers 5 more yards or whatever it is. Now they totally eliminated it from the game, because what's the point? Like, if you could get the ball at the 25, you're gonna no kicker is kicking it at the 25. They're usually getting it at least to the 5, to the 10. So why would you even run it out? You would just take that. Now there's no more no chance for the fumbles, no chance. You really got to be a not smart football player to try to run it back at this point, because there's so many negatives as far as fumbles and, losing yardage on that play.
Yeah, and let me look at something real quick because I want to make sure I'm not tripping here. Hold on. There it is. Okay. So it wasn't him. For some reason, I don't know why this popped in my mind. Even though I knew you weren't talking about Woodson when you were talking about Devin Hester, him winning the Heisman popped into my mind. So I know that Devin Hester, before somebody corrects me, I'm sure somebody already has, but I know he didn't win a Heisman, just to be clear. But yeah, I think, okay, so I love the QB rule, obviously. The kickoff rule is, I don't know. I don't really care either way, honestly. I'm sure players don't like it. I understand why they wouldn't, players and coaches. The NFL, they have their own agenda. I don't really have strong opinions one way or another. This Thursday night one, though, this one bugs the hell out of me, man, because I think I came up with the perfect solution about a year ago when I was talking Thursday night football, and that you don't start Thursday night football until week 4, and it goes all the way through week 17, and you only have teams coming off of bye weeks playing on Thursday night football, and every team gets 2 bye weeks. If you want a good product on Thursday night football, if it's about having the best product out there to make the most money possible, give all these teams 2 bye weeks, starting as early as week 3 for their first one, potentially, going all the way through week 16, and only have 2 teams that are coming off of a bye playing on Thursday night football. That's how you do that. And so for me, this rule here, where you can flex somebody in, that it's awful. It is absolutely awful. I hate it for the players. I hate it for the overall product. Thursday night football games are almost unwatchable in a lot of cases already. It's going to get even worse.
I think that's why they did it, though. I don't know. I think that's why they did it, right? Because when they're flexing a game, they're going to flex one that actually is competitive. I think
they're going to flex in teams that are good, Sunil. But even then, you're getting the worst product of 2 good teams. It's still really hard to watch Thursday night football 99% of the time, even if the matchup on paper should be good.
I disagree with that. I think that if it's good teams, that you're getting a really good game. But I think that there's so many, especially later on in the season, those Thursday night games were just teams that were just terrible and nobody cared about, that's why they're doing this flex, because they don't want to be in a situation where the only football game on a Thursday is like the Commanders versus Arizona Cardinals. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to watch that game. And I think there was a few of those situations that happened last year, which is why quickly they changed that this season.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Thursday night football unless, like I said, the bye week thing makes a lot of sense. But I will clarify, John. So he had asked, is Purdy throwing full-size footballs next week? No, that's not the way that it works. Unless there's something that I'm unaware of. But from every surgeon that was interviewed or talked to or put it on Twitter, everything you read, throwing starts with smaller objects and you work your way up to throwing a full-size football. I forget how many weeks it takes. I think it's like 6 weeks before you're throwing a full-size football. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But you don't just start throwing a football. No, he's going to start with like a tennis ball and then work his way up to like a softball and progress as he goes through this thing. It's not, he doesn't just start throwing with a football next week. No. So, sorry, I got sidetracked. And then I'm glad that I saw your comment and was able to bring it back because I definitely was going to answer it and then lost it. Bashaka says, I'm loving Trey's throwing motion right now. Me too. Looks a lot better for sure. It's very early, but it definitely does look cleaned up. And he's going to get even more time to refine it during this 40-day time span or so where he's away from the team again. I like that. Monsa says, Kyle said he didn't want a week 1 matchup with Philly because He doesn't have the whole team. Only person injured is Brock. Yeah, maybe. I I look at that more as like he knows his team doesn't doesn't necessarily perform early on in the season. He knows that his like just the way that his team works and the way his offense works and the way that he likes to read the rest of the league, that he would prefer to have some weeks stashed away before he goes and plays a big game like that. That's the way that I took it. But I could see why you would take it as Brock Purdy isn't healthy week 1. But that's not how I took it.
I mean, that's fact. I don't think anybody's arguing that if it's healthy Brock and healthy Trey, that Brock Purdy is the guy. Like Kyle Shanahan's guy right now is Brock Purdy. Anybody that tries to argue that is naive, right? The only thing we're talking about is Trey Lance has a chance now to win back that role or get back into Kyle's good graces, but it's a lot of work. Like it's an uphill battle. Trey even understands that he's competing for the job. He is not. He's coming from behind. Pause. He is not the on the forefront of this. So yeah, absolutely. I think if Kyle Shanahan right now had everybody healthy, Brock Purdy is his starting quarterback, and he wants Brock Purdy to be a starting quarterback. And you know what, Jesse? One of the takeaways is Brock Purdy idolizes Shanahan from the way he talks about him. Coach taught me this. Coach taught me that. And we know, even me being a Shanahan fan, I know Shanahan loves his ego being, flamed and all that kind of stuff. So I could see where even, maybe personality wise, not saying that Trey doesn't have a great personality. Sure. I think Shanahan loves Trey as well. But Brock Purdy just is that kind of quote unquote teacher's pet. Yeah. And, obviously the team looked great. This is obviously the greatest Shanahan's offense has looked with the 49ers. So there's a lot of things in Purdy's favor, right? This is literally the only chance Trey has is going to be this offseason till Brock Purdy gets healthy. And, when he starts, like I said, I expect Trey, if he gets that starting job, never to relinquish it because he's going to play that well in my books. But if he doesn't, absolutely, this is Brock Purdy's team.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with your comment, but that comment doesn't mean I can't disagree with this comment in saying that to me, because if that was true, if this comment is true by Monza, then that also means that right now Kyle Shanahan knows for certain, without a shadow of a doubt, Brock Purdy's not starting week 1. And I don't believe that to be true. So I think we're talking about two different things. He absolutely favors Brock Purdy to start week 1 if he's fully healthy. But also, I don't think his comment about that had to do with Brock Purdy's health per se. It just has to do with the overall team health. They may be physically healthy, but are they ready to go out and compete and play their best football? Not week 1. Shanahan teams don't do that week 1. And frankly, NFL teams usually don't do that week 1 unless you're the Buffalo Bills, the way they played last year. Holy, that was crazy.
Or maybe conspiracy theory.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Yannick Ngakoue still isn't on the team.
Oh, okay. All right. I like
Maybe it was a little Easter egg that Shanahan was throwing us out there. We're over here. He's thinking, is Brock Purdy, all this kind of stuff. It's really dangling over here. Yannick's still not on our team, so I'm not ready week 1 yet because he's not coming till later.
I love it. I love it. Golly. All right. What second-year player do you think and or want to make a leap this year to contribute to this team? And do you expect to see that in OTAs or training camp, or when would you like to see this player trending towards making said leap?
So is the question, who do I think needs to make a leap? Like most important to the team, or
mine is who I want and who I think needs to make a leap. So mine actually happens to fit together, but yours, you could give me 2 if you want and say, I do want to know both. Who do you want and who do you think? They may be the same player, but they might be different. So
I'll go with who I think it's going to be.
Okay.
Because it's different from who we need it to be.
Okay.
I'll let you answer that one. Who I think is going to be is Spencer Burford.
Okay.
And the reason why, obviously, it's looking, from Grant's report, Spencer Burford has come into much better shape. I think that last year he kind of had the training wheels on with rotating in and out with Brunskill. I don't think that's going to be, work this year. And I just feel like with that year under his belt, now he's going to really be able to excel. And we've already kind of seen the track record with Aaron Banks, how well he came out in his second year. I expect that Burford is going to come out and really, really just lock down that right guard position and, have that job for, the next however many years with the 49ers.
Okay. I like it. And I think early on already, just the eye test from what people are seeing at OTAs today, he definitely is meeting that criteria of taking that leap for sure. Just
Right.
body wise, he looks stronger. He looks more fit for the position. So I think that's a really good point. Who I want / think will, this was close for me because I actually had two players in mind, and I really could go either way, but I won't him and ha. I'll give you one. Actually, I'm gonna hedge my bets. I'm gonna give you two. I'm gonna hedge.
Of course,
Okay.
Jesse's hedging.
Okay. The one that I didn't choose initially was Drake Jackson.
Oh, wow.
I think he definitely fits that criteria, and you're already hearing rumblings that hey, he looks a lot better, all these types of things, and they definitely need him to. Not as much as this other player, in my opinion, and only because I think there's a scenario where if the defensive tackle position is really good, they could move Armstead outside potentially, although not ideally. That's a potential, or they can go sign somebody. There's a lot of really good pass rushers still on the market right now that you could go sign for 1 year, and they have the money. If Drake Jackson just isn't showing out early enough, they easily could go find somebody to take that spot. So that's why I didn't choose Drake Jackson. The guy that I think is going to break out, and they do need to break out, is Womack. And the reason that I say that is last year it was a small sample size, but in the preseason, he was making a ton of plays. He was all over the field. Then week 1, you could see that the skill set was there. And out of nowhere, he just kind of got pulled and didn't really start anymore. But even then, every week, it seemed like for 4 or 5 weeks in a row after that, and then sporadically throughout the season, you saw him flashing on special teams. It is so hard to flash on special teams on a regular basis. And he was doing it many, many weeks in a row, multiple weeks throughout the season. That tells me this kid he's got the opportunity and the skill set to break out. Now, why I think he has to for the team's sake, we don't know what the depth looks like in the secondary right now. And when I look at Womack, he is one of the guys that can play both inside and outside, in my opinion, if need be. And if he's the first guy off the bench and can play both those roles, that's going to be crucial for this team. Because this team every year has secondary injuries. And last year, we thought they were in a really good spot. It's like, okay, you got Mosley. And then, Ambry Thomas, if he can take that second-year leap. And then Verrett, if he comes back, they're going to be good. And we saw that it just didn't work out that way. And Lenore actually ended up stepping up and taking that role. And thank God he did. The year prior, nobody really did. And they had to go sign older free agents off the street to try to piece things together.
Right.
Ambry Thomas showed out for a week, showed some promise. They need to have a next man up that for sure can play both positions and be more than respectable in both spots in case they need him. So for me, Womack meets that criteria. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Womack is coming off the bench, and obviously if he gets called on, we want to see him play. I'm really high on Isaiah Oliver. I think he's going to be the nickel or the slot corner. I don't think Womack beats him out in that position. And I think that that's okay because I think Womack is better on the outside just based off of, his makeup, his tendencies and things like that. I think he's just better on the outside. But yeah, we definitely need it. I mean, we need that Lenore type player because Lenore is probably going to be, him and Charvarius are going to be the CB1, CB2. So if one of them goes down, we need that next person up that comes in and, holds down the fort. So absolutely, if that could be Womack, I think it's extremely important. I personally think Drake Jackson needs to be the second year that steps up just because, especially with the addition of Hargrave, we need somebody to take advantage of all the double teams that are going to be on Hargrave and Bosa. And it has to be Drake Jackson. I mean, as of now, it has to be that. Yeah, maybe there's somebody that we could go get and all that kind of stuff, but then that's money that we could be using towards something else later on down the line, right? If Drake Jackson could step up and be that person, now we have somebody on a rookie contract that fills a need that can help us take us to that next level versus needing to replace that because he's not turning out to be the player that he was drafted to be.
For sure. Yeah. And like I said, that was such a tough decision for me. And I definitely could see why you would say Drake Jackson. Monsa says D-line is better than the 2019. He's going out on a limb. Yeah, you talked about that yesterday. So Monsa, go ahead in the chat, shout out your channel. He's starting a channel. Yesterday, I was a guest on his show. I don't know if you've published the video or not. We didn't go live, but check him out. I was his first guest, so feel honored to be that guy. Thank you, Monsa. But yeah, you said that yesterday. I pushed back a little bit, but I like it. It's definitely going out on a limb, no doubt about it.
Obviously, so. Jesse's an Eagles fan this year.
EGLES Eagles.
Fly,
is that
Eagles fly?
Oh, you know the song better than I do. I'm the Eagles fan. What's really under that jersey?
Hairy chest.
Okay, don't show us that. I'm gonna throw a jab from. This is coming from a fan of a terrible NBA team. But man, your Lakers got wrecked this week against it. I told you I didn't say they were going to get swept, but we talked off camera. I told you, man, Denver's on a different level right now. They're a whole different ball game, that team.
What I learned, and I put this on Twitter as well, I learned through this NBA playoffs that there's literally only two fan bases in the NBA. There's the Laker fan base and then the Laker hater fan base, because the amount of people that are just coming out of the woodwork, and you see the feed and it's just like literally anything positive about the Lakers, a whole bunch of just people just like, oh, Lakers are just like now just moral victories, and oh, see, you guys got swept by another team, and blah, 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 blah. Literally have nothing positive to say about their team and their teams that got laced by the Lakers, but it's all about the Lakers' downfall. And look, not everybody can handle greatness. Being a Laker fan, it comes with the territory. We have a lot of highs, way more highs than your team has, whatever your team is, because we are the we have the most gold out of any other organization. But when the lows are there, you got to take it on the chin. But that's what we built for, baby. Sure. We built for this.
Yeah, they had a good season though. They definitely outperformed where they should have been. Let's be real. They had a good season. I've always been a LeBron guy, and so when he went to LA, it was very, very conflicting for me because it's beat LA always. Coming from Portland, we hate you. But definitely had a good season. And LeBron, for 38 years old, man, he played out of his freaking mind. You can't hate on him for that. But Denver is just clearly the best team right now to me. I don't think I think they showed it's not particularly close, at least not in the West. We'll see how it goes in the finals. But I just had to talk a little ish. It's all love,
That's
though.
Okay, man.
It's all love.
It's okay. I mean, you're not even a real NBA fan anymore, bro. Like I said, you fall under that Laker hater fan base, bro. There's literally only two.
Totally fair.
Only two. You either a Laker fan or you hate the Lakers. There's no in between.
I will say this: I was rooting for y'all to beat Golden State. I couldn't stand that whole thing. So I for a series, you had my attention captured, and then after that, it was back to hate LA. So that's the way it is. It's just the way it is around here. Tomorrow night, We have the call-in show, open mic, so make sure you tune into that. It'll be on after 49ers After Dark. So probably around 10:20 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Call in, give your takes. I know there's a lot that you want to talk about as well. A lot has happened this week. One of the major topics we didn't even talk about, I didn't really want to get into it, but it'll be open forum, your night to call in. So Neil, as always, thank you so much for coming in and participating. You didn't have to. It was totally voluntary.
Like my boy, repping my boy Debo. He didn't want to show up because he's off being great somewhere else. But I'm repping for Debo. I showed up.
All right. Appreciate y'all in the chat. Much love. See you tomorrow. Peace.